What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to our Patreons. Your contributions directly go back to the channel and help fund our giveaways, such as the For Robin Hood Champion of Sherwood that we're doing the first Friday in May. We'll go live for that. But without further ado, guys, we today are drawing and ramping using cards, obviously, like your Madam Mims, your Mickey Detectives, your One Jumps, and getting into your powerful cards like ELSA Spirit of Winter making a return in the meta scene, and your Hades Infernal Schemer. So, without further ado, we're jumping on into the deck list, and then we'll go over some matchups, and lastly, some gameplay footage. If you're curious what decks are doing well in events, link down below to a spreadsheet that I'm trying to keep up on. I need to get the deck cores caught back up, but the overall tops are still there, and this deck's actually been topping a little bit more and gaining some traction. So ramp and draw is essentially the name of the game. We're playing 10 unequal cards, 8 1 costs, then we go up to 11 twos, 16 threes, and then the fours down to 15, and then we teeter off with our fives and higher. Character cards going through first. We are playing 37 of them, and the deck also comes in at $136. So as far as competitive decks go, it's actually not that bad. We are playing 2 Cusco Wanted Llama. He is just a body to get on board early to help with those aggro type decks. His 2 willpower also helps you challenge into things like Maleficent Biding Her Time, Lilo Wishmaker, things like that. Also, when he is banished, you may draw a card. So he's card draw, you can bounce him back for ink fodder, and again, you can just not let those aggro decks that sometimes against these item type, setup type decks, where they just aggro out really quickly against you. The Cusco allows you to challenge into them and draw when he has served his purpose. Madam Mim Snake, we are playing 3 of her, 4 of the foxes as our bounce package. We are playing 4 Grandma Tala. If you see some cards different in the gameplay footage, after I put the list together, theorize it, go through it, think about it, test it, sometimes I'll go through and make some changes afterwards to try to bring you guys the best possible deck. We are playing 4 Grandma Tala Storyteller, just as another way to help ramp up and get that card on board, say turn 2. You can crash it into one of your opponent's aggro cards, take it out, and then she goes to your inkwell, so you gain a little extra advantage from her. Merlin Crab, kind of a staple as far as Amethyst decks go as of late, and really not surprised by that, because whether it's locations or just big threats you need to get over, the +3 helps a lot. Only 2 Mickey Mouse Detectives, because we just have other ways to ramp, and turn 3, a lot of the time your Madam Mim Fox or your Fishbone Quill are your ideal plays. A fun thing you can do with the Mickey, though, if you do see it, you can play him, ink a card, and then if you bounce it later, you can replay it again, kind of making it where you don't need more than just a couple. For Merlin Goats, we are opting not to play Merlin Rabbit, you may notice, because the deck has other ways to draw, so it just felt like didn't really need it, and trying to keep our uninkable count a little bit lower. Grandma Tala, Keeper of Ancient Stories, being able to look at the top 2 cards and add 1 into your hand is just really, really helpful. Being able to tutor out and see into your deck, again, kind of why you're not playing the rabbit, because yes, you get the draw, but Tala allows you to go 2 cards deep and add 1 of those 2 to your hand. Hiram Flaversham, this is the draw engine of the deck. He is just insane at what he does. There's really not much else to say about it, and at 6 willpower, he can be very problematic to deal with. As you ramp up, we get into our powerful things, such as your Gaston Intellectual Powerhouse, who can quest for 3 and also look 3 cards into your deck, kind of like the Grandma Tala, to help tutor out things that are a little bit more important. I'll try and focus in on us a little bit more there. I know that's why you guys are here. And then into our 7s, we ended up putting in Grandma Tala, Spirit of the Ocean, just as another way to passively gain some lore. You can get her out, shift her out if you want, and then if you ink a card, or say you Fishbone Quill and ink another card, you gain a couple lore in that process, plus her 8 willpower, 4 strength is nothing to sneeze at. I was initially playing Yzma Scary Beyond All Reason here, and it just, I don't know. I felt like this card would do better. And at first I was like, oh, I could play Ursula. We're not too high on uninkable cards. And I'm like, the 8 willpower is really, really nice. Questing for 3 is nice. The minus lore to draw one's really nice. And then I was looking at Grammatala. I was like, she's actually inkable. And her 4 strength ended up being the tipping point. Because otherwise, hand in hand, I think this card and Ursula were very similar in what I'm trying to accomplish. And doing stuff to progress my game state and close out the game. But her 4 strength, when your opponent's trying to deal with her, comes up and puts in a lot more pressure than the 2 from the Ursula. Hades Infernal Schemer, we're only playing one of him. His 3/6 is very nice. Being able to put their character down into their inkwell, also very nice. However, we're playing one of him and opted for 3 ELSA Spirit of Winters. This card has been absolutely insane. I've been waiting and trying to fit her back into a meta type deck, and this deck has been doing it so well. The ramp helps get her out early. Your cards like Fishbone Quill help get them out of your hand early if you don't need her. Really, I can't say enough about this card. Being able to exert and then, obviously quest for 3, and then you could even bounce her up back to your hand. We do have a misplay in the one video that we'll go over. My mistakes are learning points for everyone else, so I don't mind showing them. Actions, we are playing 4 Develop Your Brain. Then onto our songs, 2 1 Jumps Ahead. 4 Friends on the Other Side, and then double Let It Go. Lastly, or not lastly, almost lastly, items. We are playing the 4 Popsicle and 4 Fishbone Quill. With the Hiram, I get that 8 isn't super, super high, but at the same time, it's been working really nicely. And then now lastly, we are playing 3 Queen's Castle, which also can be another draw engine, as well as an engine to gain some passive lore. So looking into our Ruby Amethyst matchup, what do you need to worry about? Well, neither one of these decks necessarily have a strong early game. They both excel in the mid to late game, and they're a very resource heavy deck, so your strong draw engine is very helpful in that regard. One thing I would say, both decks have very strong high-end characters, and Be Prepared is a absolute blowout card. So don't overcommit your board when you know Be Prepared is coming. Keep some of those higher characters in your hand, so when you get hit with Be Prepared, you can come back with multiple characters. Because if you come back with just one character after Be Prepared, that's when the Lady T's, the Medusas, the Maleficents really put in work, because they just pick your cards off one at a time. If you can kind of not overcommit to your board and hold them in your hand, I actually think you have a decent matchup versus Ruby Amethyst. Steel Song. Okay, so I do think this deck does pretty good against any type of steel deck. Obviously, they're going to have, all their really strong spells, their Zeus's, their whole new worlds when you're getting your perfect hand. But at the same time, this isn't Sapphire Steel where you're kind of dumping your hand to play your own whole new world to fill it up. You're playing strategically to use your hand to build up your inkwell as fast as you can while still holding on to your threats. And actually, when they drop that whole new world on you and they reload your hand, a lot of the time it feels really nice. In addition to that, you have multiple characters of yours that are really strong with more than 5 willpower, so a single Zeus doesn't even take them out. And Grab Your Swords, likewise, isn't that impactful versus, while on the same note, things like their Queen, their Beast, their Robin Hood, their Cinderella, well, we have Hades, we have Let It Go, you have ELSA to not let them ready themselves, and you can just keep them exerted. Like, you have so many good ways to deal with a lot of their cards that this matchup, again, actually is pretty favorable. So Tempo is the next deck we're going into. This deck, like any aggro deck, can cause some issues, so you really want to, say in this matchup, or again any aggro one, prioritize turn 2 getting that character down, whether it be your Grammatala or your Cusco. You really want to get that down, especially turn 3 too. You might have to go for characters over the Fishbone Quill, and it kind of sets you back that little bit. but at the same time, it's usually not that worrisome because you can you can go into like turn 5 or 6 with this deck pretty comfortably at 0 lore and still come out winning. So just again, this is a matchup where you may have to prioritize the characters over that item and over the draw and ramps and kind of stabilize the board presence, and then all of a sudden turn 5, 6, drop your fishbone, drop your Mickeys, dropping these multiple cards, and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with your lore or with your inkwell, and then all of a sudden you're going from 5 to 7 to 9 in the next 2 turns, and then you just really ramp it up as the game goes on. On to the red-blue deck. This deck has been gaining a lot of steam and has officially become a tier 1 deck. Again, I say officially because tier list using strictly results, no opinions, no thoughts, nothing, just how decks are performing. The deck is over 10% of the top cut chart, so it has moved into that tier 1 status. Kind of like you, they're not going to get too crazy in the early game. So you can kind of trade off pretty well. Their Queen of Hearts isn't going to get much value because you're not putting a 1 or 2 drop down and really questing for her to come down and have her rush matter. Later game, you do want to be careful because they have a lot of the same characters we do, but they have that be prepared still. In addition to that, Maui's Fishhook granting evasive to their character so you can't touch it for an entire turn can definitely hurt. Luckily, between Hades, Let It Go, ELSA, you can kind of control the game state late game. The Maleficents are definitely something you need to really be leery on, because if you can, especially if you can get to like 10 ink, and if you can play your ELSA Exerther characters, don't leave her on board necessarily to try and quest next turn. Bounce her back to your hand, use your other characters to quest, or force those Maleficents to come out a little bit sooner. This matchup I definitely would say can be very rough. It's usually dictated by like the first 2 turns, like what play lines do you each have, and then after turn 2, who gains that first advantage, and then like turns 6 and 7 are probably the 2 most important turns in this matchup. So this one can go either way, maybe slightly unfavorable, but definitely not an unwinnable matchup. Sapphire Steel. Again, it's a steel deck, so against the steel engine, I really think this deck does good things. So you want to look into the blue engine. As far as their ramping goes, kind of like I guess we didn't really mention with the red-blue, Lucky Dime just sneaking in and stealing wins can be catastrophic for you. So do keep an eye on that if you're in that red-blue matchup. Dime not quite as popular in this matchup. However, things like Let It Go are a little more common. Hades is a little more common. Not that you don't see him at all in red-blue, but he's more common here. Bell to get that extra lore once you get to 10 ink also is a lot more common in this deck, as is, say, the Cogsworth. But luckily, Cogsworth doesn't usually matter because we're not necessarily challenging them. You're using, again, your ELSA, your Hades, your Let It Go, these types of cards to take down your opponent instead. And then lastly, the green steel discard deck. This one can, I don't necessarily want to say be tricky. Prince John is going to be protected with his ward from your choosing of him, so you do have to remember that you're not going to be able to just exert him or ink him for them. There's not a whole lot that they're going to do to put him in your harm's way. So the best way to render him useless is to dump your hand. If you can dump your hand versus this deck, not necessarily the easiest of things. ELSA double singing some of them steel songs can definitely hurt too. However, again, I don't think it's necessarily a bad matchup. It's just that aggro one where this one's tricky because you're going to give up some ground early game, and I'd say probably turn 3 through 5 is more important in this matchup because you, unlike say the tempo and other true aggro decks where it's like, okay, put down your Cusco, put down your Grammatala, and start taking their threats off the board. This deck's not quite that easy because they have the Let the Storm Rage on. They have the Strength of the Raging Fire. They have the Smashes. They have these other cards to take your cards off the board. So it's almost like, oh, I wish I were ramping and getting into my power cards faster. So if you can ramp, kind of dump your hand with that Fishbone Quill and really put it into your Inkwell and get your big characters on the board quick, that's probably the best way in this matchup to navigate it. Like I said, I know with the Merfolk and with the Flynn, it's going to be tempting to go characters to trade with them early like the other aggro matchups I would recommend. But this one, I wouldn't. You might go down 8-10-0 early on, but just trust that your deck's going to do what it wants, and as you ramp up, you're going to catch back up in the long haul. So we got a couple replays to go over for you guys, and that will be it for this video. Like, share, subscribe, comment down below, all those good things. Also, my friends and locals over at All Access Cardshop, they have a incredible playmat collaboration with Grimoire. Obviously it's folded up here, but nice little koi fish. Got some waves on there. This thing is cloth, double player. Get a better review for you guys in another video. But this thing is just so soft. The cards move so nicely on it. It's double, like I said, 2 players, so you just throw it out there when you're at home playing with your kids, anything like that. They ship, and if you're not interested in the playmat, they also cover all your TCG needs. Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, model making kits, and more. I actually have a cool Millennium puzzle. I don't think they still have it in stock, but it was a Bandai puzzle thing where you actually had to build it. It took me like 45 minutes to do, watching a YouTube video. It was actually really fun. But yeah, they got all kinds of collectible stuff like that, so check out their store link also down below and help support a absolutely great locals. We are going second against Amethyst Emerald Tempo. So in typical fashion with our replays, we are going second. We have our 1-drop in our develop, and then we can ramp. We have our Tala for turn 2. If she survives, she can sing 1 jump ahead or challenge his board to start ramping. We have our Hiram for our potential draw engine, so we don't need friends. Again, we did end up cutting the rabbit, and then we don't need the Queen's Castle either. Arguably should have got rid of the 1 jump too, because, well, 1, it's unequal, and 2, trying to get to one of those item cards with our Flavisham in hand is very important. You see Chernobog's followers there too. It was just another one of those cards that offers a potential draw that we were testing, and at the end of the day did not make it. And the deck just draws so much, we were able to cut some of them other niche draw cards out. Also hitting a Cusco and a Hades. So he actually comes down with a Rafiki, which means less aggro on his end, so I'm okay with that. If he doesn't want to go aggro, I know in the long run we can outpace him pretty easily. So we're going to go down and put our character down for turn 1, however, just to get it on board. And again, this way, if he quests with the Rafiki, you just challenge into it with Chernobog. And again, if you want to play Chernobog in this deck, absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's a great 1-drop, and it offers a potential draw. Kit Cloud Kicker getting inked, and then the Flynn comes down. So we knew the aggro was coming at some point. We hit our Fishbone Quill, which is amazing. I'm really happy with my hand, so we don't necessarily mind at that point. And we put our Grammatala down. He didn't do anything, so obviously we can't Chernobog into anything. We just need to draw into an inkable card, play our Fishbone Quill. He forgot to quest before bouncing, and he could actually come right back with it, but instead comes back with the Merfolk. Kind of interesting to not come down with the Merfolk, I guess, but at the same time, I don't know. I guess it's horse apiece, puts the threat down to keep me from challenging, but he was going first. If he was going second, I would play the Rafiki. Going first, though, I don't know if I agree with it. We hit the Fox, which I don't necessarily want to ink, so we go with the Chernobog, and we draw into an uninkable card. Unfortunately here, I'm going to ink my Flavisham because I want to get the Fox out, and I'm going to take out the Flynn and get rid of that Grammatala that we just bounced back, because we're ahead inking now, and I just want to stay ahead on advantage. And if he snakes into my Fox, I'm okay with that trade-off, because that means our Fox took out the snake and the Flynn. Rafiki getting inked to stay with us. and a queen's castle comes down. So our opponent still has 2 cards in hand, and unfortunately, we draw another unequal card. So we play our fishbone and then get rid of one of those Mickeys. We're going to go lose 2 there, and that Cursed Merfolk also going to quest for another 2. Rabbit coming down, giving him a draw, assuming he'll ink, and then move 1 character to the castle to be able to protect it. We draw into a Mim Fox. So now we can play our Mickey, go ahead, ink 1. Fishbone Quill, we can go ahead, debating what I wanted to ink. I was like, Hades can out a problem, Gaston quests for more and can dig us into a different solution. So we get our Fox, and instead of going after the rabbit, I actually go after the castle. I know he's going to jump even more ahead on lore here, but I was just trying to set myself up to, again, win in the long run. He gets 1 more lore this way and the other draw, but I can get rid of that castle a little bit sooner. Ursula comes down, so now we have to think Friends on the Other Side or Mother Knows Best is coming out next. So getting potentially double bounced, or he's going to draw 4. Then Little Ursula coming down, which means he gets to look at our hand and see that, well, we don't have a song. Questing with that merfolk, so we go down 13. And we draw into ELSA, which is actually very, very good for us. So we can go ahead, finish off that castle now with Fox, play the Ursula, and we're going to hit the Singer and the Merfolk. So he can still quest for 2. Now, at least if he has a song, he can't double sing it, and that's going to be kind of what we're hoping can survive us a turn. Maleficent comes down, he draws a card. He can go quest if he wishes, and then go to 15. However, he does sing with the rabbit, keeping the 2 ink in his inkwell, going to 3 then after going to Chernobog, and then quest with the Ursula. So he could have inked the Chernobog unless he drew it and he's got uninkable cards. So we're down 14-1 at this point, but that's not necessarily the end of the world. And we go Gaston, which actually goes, how many times can I say actually? And it hits a Mim Fox. So I do misplay here on how we play it out. So we go Fox into the Ursula, if I can remember my misplay. Then Ursula into the rabbit. Then, okay, yeah, this is what it was. I bounced the Fox here. I should have bounced the Ursula because we're going Fox into the other Ursula eventually. Or then you would have gone into the other Ursula, bounced the ELSA to your hand, and I guess he would go to 17 instead of 16. But then ELSA could come down and just stop him in his tracks for another turn, and then you have the 2 foxes still applying that pressure, and you don't lose the card in hand. Instead, the Fox comes down, and he's able to clean take out our ELSA, which sets us a little bit behind because, again, we lost that other card in our hand now. Waiting to see what he does. 4 cards in his hand, Crab and Maleficent. At least Gaston quests for 3. That's kind of what we got going for us, right? And he Mother Knows Best and puts the Gaston back. So then we play Gaston. We hit a spellbook too, which is actually kind of nice, but Gaston is able to hit a Queen's Castle. Fishbone can ink the Sorcerer's Spellbook, and then we can play our castle. Fox take out the Maleficent. So now actually we're not in the worst place ever because we have 6 per turn, so essentially we're 3 turns away because we're going to obviously draw into characters. We need to just keep his board down while at the same time being able to quest on our own. He uses the Yzma and puts our Gaston back, and then he crashes and trades with our Fox. So we're going to get the 2 from the castle at least. We hit our own crab, and we have a Let It Go. So we go Friends on the Other Side, draw 2. Then we go Flaversham. Debating if I was going to use it here or not. I could have even, say, inked crab or whatever, then used the fishbone and did it that way, and then played the Flaversham, and at that point drew 2. which essentially reduces the risk of, say, he does something here that destroys my Flavisham, right? So had you held the Flavisham a little bit longer, could have played it out the same, but drew 2 right away. Only difference is now we're questing, and we're going to draw 2. But say we drew into a item, we could have obviously had it there, and then quested, and then you would have been able to draw 2 more. So essentially we're 2 cards behind. But now the Gaston comes down, it hits the Popsicle, we get into another castle. So now we got 2 castles, the Flavisham, which is going to keep our draw, and Gaston on board. Or here now we're only 2 turns away from winning. He's at 15. He does have the Mother's Knows Best, which is going to double sing for him. Unfortunately, take both out. So Ursula comes down, sees our hand. We have no songs in hand, and I do have another misplay coming up here, so that's very unfortunate with the way this matchup's going. So 16-10, though, we're bringing it closer. We play our Gaston, seeing our hand. We have the goat in hand. We don't need the other goat. We don't need the Huron. We already have one. We have another item in hand. We get our snake. So then we go Flavisham, can go ahead, hit the Popsicle. So essentially at this point, we drew into a friends and another Popsicle. We have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, putting us up to 18. And you know what else you just do? Next turn, you quest. You go to 18. Oh my gosh, this is upsetting. Really? Stay off the screen. So you quest, you get your lore, and then you play your goat, you play your snake, you bounce your goat, you win the game. I don't know why I played the snake on this turn, and I'm like, as soon as I played it, too, I was like, oh my goodness, I might have just lost this game. He can go to 19. If he has a goat, he has a goat. There's nothing in my hand that I could have done to stop it. Friends on the other side, still, if he has goat, he has goat, and he wins. For how long this is taking, I was just like, I really don't know what's going to come down. And as soon as I see that, I was so happy. I'm like, he does not have it. So we go quest, 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 up to 19, and he's got that threat on board. So I was like, well, we should have won the game, but instead we drew into a goat, and say, what else could we have done? We would have went to 18, played our goat for 19, we'd have 9 left, play Flavisham, we'd go down to 5 left, you'd hit your Popsicle, you'd get 2 more draws, and if you drew into another goat or a bounce card at that point, you would still win. So drawing into, say, goat, snake, or fox with the +2 draws off Flavisham, we had quite a few ways to get that extra lore, but at the end of the day, we got it, and now we get to go against Amethyst, Steel. I swear, this program hates me right now. It doesn't want to stay off the screen, even when we click up. So we actually get to go first here. So looking at what we have, I was like, well, we have our 1-drop play, and it's an item, so we can dig for the Flavisham. I actually wanted to keep that castle on castle as a good way because he's got item removal. Rise of the Titans not super popular. Obviously, Zeus being able to, go after it would hurt. We hit Popsicle and we go 1 jump ahead. We did hit our Huron. We hit a Fox. We hit a Goat. We hit a Cusco. I'm pretty happy with where we're sitting. Maleficent goes and gets inked. We draw into a Let It Go. He didn't have a 1-drop play. That's pretty good. We get rid of the Let It Go because I like the rest of my hand too much, and we have a lot of other top-end cards. Come down with our Cusco. He inks the Benja, which to me was a bit surprising, just being a Sapphire deck. Just kind of was surprised that he didn't want to, I guess, use it. But anyway, we go ahead, Cusco sing the 1 jump to build a ramp. We ink our friends because I just felt like I got the Huron, I got Cusco, I got other draw cards, I got the castle. I didn't need the friends. We put our Fox down just as a better threat on board and get the Cusco to our hand as a potential inkable card. Because if we drew into an uninkable card, that'd be unfortunate. I liked all the other inkable cards in my hand. We, however, did draw into an inkable card, so again, it worked out. We play our Huron, get rid of our Popsicle, draw into Tala, draw into a Fishbone Quill. So we can go ahead and just get rid of that Tala. We're not going to use her. We're going to ink it. Then I was like, do you quest it? Do you not? And I'm like, well, he doesn't have, or the Jafar's not like a Challenger Captain Hook where he gains extra advantage on his turn. He just gains that evasive. So I wasn't too worried about it. If he wants to trade into it, he can trade into it. Instead, He does come down with the Tinkerbell and shifts, so putting 1 damage on each doesn't really change anything though, so not too worried at this point. Tinkerbell singing the Zeus to finish off our Hiram. That was actually a good play. I was like, didn't quite expect it. Trades into then our Fox this way. So he's got 4 in hand. We got our 5, but like where we're at, we're ahead on the ink too. Again, Yzma is a good card. If you want to play Yzma, I opted to take it out for other things, the Grammatala package, but Yzma definitely can be very good. In that scenario, she worked. She got rid of a threat on board. Again, not going to say to not play her. You can absolutely play her. So we see Benja come down there. We have our Fishbone still in hand, so we avoided Benja. We know another one got inked, so again, not having to worry about it. We ink the Merlin Crab, and then we play our Queen's Castle, debating what to do here. I'm like, well, let's go ahead, quest, and then I'm like, yep, we're just going to do it. Fishbone, get rid of the goat. I don't think that was going to matter, so we can move to the castle, get some extra draws here in the next turn. Our opponent goes up to 6 in his ink. His Yzma comes down, hits ours to get rid of our extra draw, which inadvertently gives us 2 draws instead. So instead of 1 draw, we got 2 extra draws. I will take it. We get our 2 lore, and then we hit Mickey. We're just going to Fishbone, get that Mickey out of our hand, play the Gaston. We hit our Elsa. That's just great at this point of the game. That's what we want. So we go ahead, Elsa. We move to our castle. And then we get to see a couple cards, and we already had Snake, so we just grab that Mickey. It's just going to get inked on our turn anyway. Not too worried in this matchup either with what our opponent could have. Like, I'm really not. Like, Big Cinderella could come down, but we can take care of her with Elsa. We can take care of her with Hades. We could take care of her with Let It Go. Like, we have multiple options to take care of her and not have to worry about it. Our opponent goes after our castle, but he's not able to take it out. So we get the extra draw off our castle. Our opponent obviously has a little bit better board presence than we do, but we're going to start working on that. Gaston go into his Benja, take that down. We still have 9, so I'm like, we're actually sitting really, really well. Not too worried at all. We're going to Fishbone Quill, get rid of that Mickey, which is essentially what we grabbed it for. Then we can go ahead, play our Elsa. We're going to hit the Yzma and the Jafar Snake because we don't want him getting a draw or the multiple lore. Make him use the small Jafar if he's going to do anything. And then we opt to just sing when we draw into a Chernabog and a Popsicle. So assuming here he's going to, he's got a debate. Like, does he go after the Gaston and take it out, which would get rid of the extra draw, or does he go after the castle and take that out, which would get rid of a draw as well? Instead, he sings the whole new world, gets his 7 lore, but that means we're getting our extra draw, and we technically could get 8 more lore on our turn. However, I do want to get rid of that Jafar in case he's got more whole new worlds. We don't want to get stuck into that loop by any means. So at this point, it's looking at his board. How can I take care of his board and gain the best advantage? We quest with our Elsa. We play our Fox, bounce the Elsa. Fox can go ahead and take out either one of these threats. We go after the Jafar instead. And then knowing Gaston's just going to take out the other one. So we're just kind of trading board state at that point. And then we come down with our Hades to get rid of the Jafar. Our opponent's got 5 in hand. We got 7 in hand. We have a much better board at this point also. Then we get to our 3 lore. I don't have any lower cost characters we can play, but I'm like, I can go with the Develop Your Brain and see what we can't hit. We move Hades to the castle. So assuming he's going to take out the castle so that we can't draw a card, then we still have the Hades on board. We're at 12, so not too worried whatsoever. He shifts into the big tank, puts 1 damage on our Hades, not too worried, takes out our castle, as expected. We're not going to be able to get that 2 passive or that extra draw, which, again, I don't necessarily care at this point of the game. We have a loaded hand, all kinds of good cards, and yeah, so we're sitting pretty good. Also, say we go Elsa, we hit both, so they can't ready. We can go with Hades. We have 5 more on board. We just need to put down like 1 more. All we need is 1 more. We put down our castle, which actually gives us 2. We can move both there. And he, at the moment, does not have enough to take out the castle either. He could use both to take out the Hades and lose his board. But even then, I go to 19, and he realizes that he just cannot win that game. So here it was, the ramp and draw deck. Let me know down below what you guys think. And until next time, guys, take care.